You're already growing your own food, so why not make your own soil amendments? In this episode of the Daily Gardening Routine, we're going to talk about composting. I'm Big City Gardener, and today we're talking about how you can turn your kitchen scraps and your yard waste into black gold. Composting is one of the best things you can do for the environment, and not to mention one of the best amendments that you can add to your garden. And if you're down here in Zone 9 in the spring and summer, you're able to produce hot compost a lot faster than you realize. Compost is generally made up of two ingredients, your greens and your browns. Your greens are nitrogen-rich products, like your kitchen scraps, your food waste, your garden clippings, and even coffee grounds. Now your browns, that's your carbon source. That's anything like sticks, dried leaves, twigs, cardboard, shredded newspaper, anything like that. A lot of people argue about the proper ratio between your carbon and your nitrogen products in your compost pile. Look, I'm going to make this very simple for you. You need a ratio of 2 to 1. 2 parts carbon for every 1 part of nitrogen. So if I'm looking to add 3 pounds of nitrogen-rich waste to my compost bin, I need to be adding 6 pounds of carbon-rich materials into that bin. The proper balance between your carbon and your nitrogen helps to keep your pile balanced, odor-free, and hot, which means cooking and creating compost. If you're gardening in an urban setting or a small garden, a patio, or a balcony, don't worry, you can still compost. I know a lot of times when people think about composting, they think about big, huge, stinky piles that attract rats and other vermin. But you have other options if you live in an urban setting. Here are a few methods that work phenomenally in small spaces. First, bokashi. Bokashi bins are a great way to compost. They're small, odor-free, and allow you to compost any material that you want through a process of fermentation. Composting with worms or vermicomposting is another great space-saving way that you can compost if you have a small space. You can simply hide a bin, fill it with vermicomposting worms, and allow them to break down all of your kitchen scraps into a phenomenal product known as vermicompost. And just like with bokashi bins, vermicomposting bins do not have to be an eyesore. They can be hidden out of the way and still work their magic where nobody can see them. And vermicomposting actually happens to be my favorite way to compost in an urban setting. Next, we have compost tumblers. These are perfect for urban settings. They're compact, convenient, and can also be hidden out of the way. They help keep the unsightly process of composting out of the view of others. Not to mention, they keep all of the food scraps enclosed, and this will help keep vermin from messing with your compost pile. Next, we have grow bag composting. Simply fill an old grow bag with layers of green and browns and allow it to break down over time. This method is simple, cheap, and portable. Urban composting is all about being resourceful, using what you have, and being creative. You don't need a huge compost pile to make a big difference in your garden soil. There's a lot of fancy composting systems out there, but to be real, you don't even need anything fancy. Simply start with what you have. If all you have is a corner of your yard, start a compost pile there. You have an old trash can that you're no longer using, drill holes in it and repurpose it into a compost bin. The key to successfully creating compost is having the proper balance between our greens and our browns and making sure that we have enough airflow and enough moisture in our compost pile. Excessive amounts of moisture can lead to stinky compost piles. Not enough airflow flowing through? Well, then you're not going to end up heating the compost to the proper temperature. How do I know when my compost is ready? Compost is ready when it changes to a dark, rich color, when it has an earthy smell, and when you're no longer able to recognize any of the materials in your compost bin. No banana peels, no apple cores, no shredded newspaper or cardboard, just nutrient-rich soil amendment. If you're not sure if your compost is ready, simply give it time. Compost is one of those things that you do not want to rush. But if you live down here in Zone 9 and you're composting in the middle of the summer, then you can expect your compost to be ready in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. But if you have a passive, hands-off pile, then you should expect your compost to be ready in around 3 to 6 months. If you're wondering how to use your finished compost, don't worry, I got you. Here are my 3 favorite methods. First, top dress. I take some compost and spread it on top of my soil beds or even on top of the mulch. I allow the rainwater to work the nutrients down into the soil slowly over time. Second, and my favorite method, is I create compost teas. I simply soak compost in water to extract the nutrients, and then I pour this water directly on the leaves or the soil of my plants. With this method, I'm able to give my plants a quick boost and stretch the amount of compost that I use. With one handful of compost, I can normally only apply it to 1 or 2 plants. But one handful of compost in a 5-gallon bucket that I allowed to create compost tea, well, I'm able to water that into more than half of my garden. And third, I like to mix the compost directly into the planting holes or into the trenches whenever I'm seeding or transplanting plants. This way, the plants are able to get a jump start on growth with all of that extra nutrients available. Compost feeds your soil, not just your plants. And if you've ever watched any videos on this channel before, then you know that I'm a big fan of feeding the soil and having the soil feed your plants as opposed to feeding your plants. Adding compost to your garden can help improve drainage, can increase the amount of nutrients that are available within the soil, can help retain moisture, and can help keep the root zone happy. If you start one new thing in your garden this year, let it be a compost pile. Now, if you're wondering how we're going to incorporate this composting knowledge into our daily gardening routine, here it is. When you're on your daily walk, pruning any diseased leaves, harvesting anything that's overripe, or pulling any weeds out of your garden, simply add those to your compost bin. By doing that, we're able to accomplish more things in a smaller amount of time. We're not actually adding another task to our daily gardening routine. We're simply taking the waste and turning it into gold. And that's it. If you have a favorite composting method, don't forget to drop it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll never miss any of the daily gardening videos. Make sure you tune in to tomorrow's episode where we talk about pest management. Until then, get outside, get your hands in the dirt, and plant plants.